Jeff, I'm here another video on the introduction to linguistics for technical writing, TechCom, user assistance, translation, interpretation. There are lots of different subfields. This topic is on computational linguistics. Now, some people see this as the dark side of the forest of linguistics, okay, and that's the way it is. And computational linguistics has really been kind of on the forefront of the linguistic side for, I'd say, about 30 years now. It's been about 30 years. When I came in the field in 1995, coming from linguistics, coming to computational linguistics is really where at the beginning. Not the very, very beginning, but really the beginning where it was starting to take off. And that was when the term computational linguist was starting to come out very early, the early days, on the job ads. And what I try to summarize of what the difference between a computational linguist and a linguist is, because I've been both, is that, and this is where you can show the needs to why the needs for linguistics is important here to understand it, is that a computational linguist will try to, it's called the Pareto principle. The Pareto principle is 80-20, the 20-80, 80-20. It's always the number of the 20% of the work will do 80% of the production, or it's all these 80-20 is used a lot, the majority and the minority. We use this a lot in a lot of livings, but they call it a lot of explanations. And a computational linguist is going to be looking at what types of features, what types of things that we want to do, what do we want to do, the tasks that we create and provide, and the results, can it fulfill 80% of the needs? So can it perform, can it correspond to 80% of the overall needs? If it can, then let's do it. That's what computational linguists will usually do. Now let's say the 20% are the outliers. It's the 20% lower and the 20% higher, right? They're the outliers, throw them out. We'll deal with them later, right? We'll deal with the lower end, the higher end. It's kind of like when you do a bid on a house or you get a bid on any kind of job, right? You go out to you ask for three different bids on something, and you take the middle one, and you throw out the higher one and the lower one, right? Or when you have to do 5 of them, you take 3 of the middle and you look at them as a short list, and you take out the lower end and the higher one because they're too expensive and they're not good enough quality, right? Kind of that kind of thing. So a computational linguist is looking at 80%. And those 10 and 10% or whatever you want to split up are the outliers. They're the ends, they're the end of the spectrum. Now, a linguist is completely the opposite in general terms. A linguist wants to focus on the 10% of each side. They want to focus on the idiosyncratic differences that stick out that are not part of the core group, right? These are the cool things to go look at, like the clitics and this and that kind of thing. And there's certain things, they're looking at all these little details. And they get lost in the details, they get lost in the forest with all the trees. They can't see the forest, they can only see the trees and all the trees, right? So the important thing here is for a computational linguist to understand the elements of linguistics enough, because they've done a computer science or something, right, to get into this kind of role. Something into something, right? It helps if they come from linguistics like myself. I came from linguistics and came to computational linguistics, so I get it, right? But a computational linguist, they sometimes need to take enough to be able to grasp how to deal with the linguists, because the linguists will sit there and nitpick over the details because they want to see the details. And the computational linguists, they're saying, hey, yeah, but I want to get the 80%. I want to focus on 80%. Let's deal with the 80% first. Let's get that out. We get the product out. We can work on it, and we'll deal with the rest, right? So this is the conflict or the point of negotiation. It's really important for working in teams. When you've got people come from each one of these areas working on a project, they're going to have different points of view, and that's really good. And I think I talked about this too in my new book chapter coming out. Something about I can't remember the name of the book chapter. It's changed a couple times. It's coming out in a couple months, in the end of December, hopefully, on called border crossings or more border crossings. There's a book chapter that I did, and I just talked with the language industry and academic versus professional in the research versus professional applied in the overall language field, language industry. And I explain that the research versus applied is kind of this contention. There's a lot of, the research, and that's not applied, that's too much research, ivory tower, all that stuff. But in the computational linguistics field, we haven't had that. Because everyone that's doing computational linguistics, you're doing the applied, you're actually making it happen, right? So if it doesn't matter what organization you're working in, you're making in some company, in a government or whatever, a nonprofit, you are making it happen applied so people can do the work done. So we don't have this debate or this, I don't know what you call this, jealousy between groups. Because computational linguistics, they're trying to actually make it happen for bringing technologies in. So it's a really good thing to see that, but it's really important for a computational linguist to understand at least the basics of linguistics. A lot we're talking in these videos, and to be able to interact with the linguist who will be looking and help to convince these linguists to not get so concerned with too many of the details, to kind of see the grouping these into larger groups and see how they can fit in, and focus on the overall, the majority of the needs, right? And rather than trying to say, hey, we need to fix this, because a linguist want to fix that little thing, but the frequency of that thing, that little issue somewhere of that clitic or whatever it may be, or that the derivation, some derivation of morphology, some inflectional morphology, something, right? A linguist go, wow, this is so unique. And the computational linguist, yeah, that's unique, but like how many times are you going to see this? How much effort are we going to put into making the system actually treat this issue? And what's the frequency we're going to run into this issue? If it's one in 1,000, 1 in a million, we don't need to fix this issue. Let the person make the change, while they're doing the translation, do the post-editing, just let them fix it, because we're not developing the feature. It's going to cost more than doing this 1,000 times, right? A person actually manually changing the word 1,000 times. So this is where the computational linguist needs to be able to explain this, and needs to understand how to explain from frequency and all that for a overall cost to build the system or to do the whatever, compared to what's the frequency of making the changes manually. And there's a point of diminishing returns, and that's what a computational linguist will bring to a team. And that's why they need to understand linguistics from at least enough for the point of view of their colleagues who are the word lovers in the trenches doing the work every day. So thanks so much for listening. And if you get any more questions, go ahead and reach out to me.